Hello there, this is What If I'd Known. Now we're doing part 2 of What If Naruto was raised by forgotten goddesses. Now before I get into the video, I'd like to apologize if there's anything in the background and if the mic quality is down. I'm using headphones instead of my mic at this moment because I am not home. So, anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and yeah, let's get into the what if. As Danzo saying, Naruto, how are you alive? As Naruto says, you can't kill me. As then Danzo says, but that doesn't explain. As Naruto says, well, Danzo, you could say a friend or people that care for me saved me. It's kind of hard to explain, really. As then a black cat popped out her head and says, well, it was my doing, partially. As Danzo says, what? Who? What is... As Danzo says, is that a summoning? What, how can it talk? As Naruto says, well, it's not a summoning. She's a friend. A very close friend at that. Or maybe even more. As Danzo says, what? As he says, nothing. Don't worry about it. But, anyway, as Danzo says, wait, how do you have those eyes? Those Sharingan. You're not in Uchiha? As then we cut to a flashback, as we see a young Naruto, as he's in the village, after he's just gotten beaten, he's trying to hide a little bit, as then he hears a voice in his head and says, hey, kid. As Naruto says, what is that voice? It's not Kurama. As this time, this is before Yoriichi appeared, obviously. But anyway, as he says, this is not Kurama. I mean, I know what her voice sounds like. I mean, when she's in her fox form, it's deep and menacing, but when she's in her human form, it's kind and soothing, but that's not neither one of those voices. Who is it? As then he says, what do you want? As Naruto says that to Indra. As Indra says, what? How are you not surprised to hear my voice? Naruto says, well, I've been hearing voices. Well, one voice. Well, multiple, I guess. I have the 9 tails. Her voice tends to change. If you get my drift, like when she's in her different forms, of course. But I'm not really surprised to hear another voice in my head, if you know. As then Indra says, ah, I see. As Naruto says, what do you want exactly? As Indra says, well, I am Indra Otsutsuki, the son of the Sage of Six Paths. And you see, you are my reincarnation. As then Naruto says, what? Your reincarnation, what do you mean? As he says, like I said, you are my reincarnation, and I chose you to be my next vessel kind of thing, but I do not take over your body, and I can help you get stronger in a way. But as Naruto says, well, even if I get stronger, it's not like I could do anything to protect myself, because these villagers, my father made a law where the village, or any village, can just attack me, and I can't do anything. If I kill them or touch them, I could be sent to prison or death. This Indra says, I see. Well, this is partially why I want you to be my reincarnation. You see, you have a kind heart, but you have a lot of hatred at the same time. And it seems, or to appear, that you are not letting your hatred take over. Which, I like that. It's very different. You see, I've had one other reincarnation in my past, you could say. His name was Madara Uchiha. As Naruto says, oh, one of the founders of the Leaf. That's interesting. I hear he was very ruthless and strong, but then he had many ideals that some people didn't agree with. As Indra says, yes. Well, you could say he is very powerful, obviously, but most of the time I only pick Uchiha to be my reincarnation because obviously they have my Gekigenkai, the Sharingan, Naruto says, oh, the Uchiha's Gekigenkai. As he says, well, they are mine. You could say they're my clansmen, or the clan I created. So yes, normally I go into one of them because they can access the Sharingan. But you seemed interesting. You're unlike any other person I've seen. So, and I feel like you could break the cycle of this reincarnation, or this hatred that I have. So in a way, we help each other. I help you get stronger, and you help me break the cycle. As Naruto says, very well, I'll try, but... And his Indra says, well, since you're not an Uchiha, well, I'm gonna have to change your DNA a little bit, if you know, to make it so you have access to this, my power. But since I've only had one reincarnation, and you don't have Sharingan, I will give you, technically, moderate Sharingan, but it's gonna have different abilities. See, since you're not an Uchiha, you will get the Eternal right away. So, as Naruto says, what is the Eternal? As he says, it's one of the most advanced forms of my eyes. Then it goes on beyond, but that's besides the point. As Naruto says, I see. Now we go back to present time. As then Naruto is explaining that, or tells Danzo that, you see the eyes that I have, well, you could say they're a gift from a friend. That's helped me very much in the past and in the future. As Danzo says, I see. As then Naruto says, well, I must be going. There's somebody I need to see. But like I said, Danzo, don't forget to show my mother that genjutsu that I gave you to show. As he says, of course. As Naruto disappears in a swirl of black flames. As then as Naruto appears to the Uchiha's home, or, the Uchiha, crap, what's it called? Compound, sorry, the Uchiha compound. I was drawing a blank in it. So the Uchiha compound. As then he goes to one house, the head of the Uchiha's house, Fugaku Uchiha's house. As there's only one person right now in this home. Actually, two people at this moment. These two people are Makoto Uchiha and Norimi Uzumaki. Now, anyway, let's continue. As Naruto goes and knocks on the door, Makoto says, who is it? As there's no answer, as she opens the door, as she sees a masked figure. As then she goes, who are you? As she activates her one Tomoe Sharingan. As then Naruto says, calm down. Not an enemy. As then she sees the eyes, the three Tomoe Sharingan. As then she puts her guard down a little bit, but she's saying, what are you doing? Who are you? You're no Uchiha I know of. As then Naruto says, may I come in? And I'll explain. As then Makoto, letting her guard down a little bit, but still having it up, reluctantly lets this masked figure in. As Naruto walks in and takes off his mask. As then Makoto, as soon as she sees his face, she goes and hugs him. She says, You're alive. I thought you'd be dead. You disappeared. As Naruto says, well, yeah, I'm sorry, Miss Makoto. I apologize. I don't like scaring you. After all, you helped me a lot in the past. As then she says, but how are you alive? As then Yoriichi, the black cat, pops her head out and says, well, it's thanks to me. And, well, a friend, but mostly me. As in mini Kurama, because at this time Kurama has a physical form due to Freya's seal that she put on Naruto, is able to allow Kurama to leave or have a physical form. As then a Ninetales head, or small, it looks like a little kitten almost, pops out as well and says, or as then Mikoto goes, wait, is that, who, is that the Ninetales? As Naruto says, what if it is? If I were to say it was, what would you do? And she says, well, nothing, but how, I would just ask how would the Ninetales be out? As he says, well, you could say it's if the seal was, the seal allows it, you could say. And then she says, oh, but anyway, how are you alive? And then he says, well, it's thanks to her, as he points at Yoriichi, the cat. And she says, interesting. But then she says, how did you get there? How do you have the Sharingan? You're not in Uchiha. As then he explains what he says to Danzo. Well, you could say, have you heard of the reincarnation? Or Angel and Asha. As Mikoto says, I've done some research, but what I found on Indra, he was basically the first Uchiha, kind of, you could say, or the founder of our clan. But then he says precisely, well, I'm his reincarnation, and he kind of tampered with my DNA a little bit to allow me to have access to this, because he's not just gonna be my, or make me his reincarnation and not give me his dojutsu. And she says, ah, I see. As then he hears laughter behind him as he goes and looks and sees a young Narumi as she's crawling aimlessly towards a random direction. As that he picks her up and says, you've gotten big. It's been a while, little Narumi. As she kind of laughs at this, as then Mikoto smirks and says, she may can't see because she's blind, but she knows that you could say you are her brother, or you're safe to be around. As Naruto says, well, I mean, she's going to be very strong. After all, I'm going to be training her. As Mikoto says, what? As he says, yeah, I may be coming into the village every once in a while to, or you might see me around. I'll be wearing this mask, obviously, but I'll be training my little sis to make her strong. So, anyway, how's it going, Mikoto? As Mikoto says, everything's fine. But anyway, we go to a quick flashback, really quick, to when the first time Naruto really... Oh, it's not really a flashback. Sorry. As we go back to a few days before Naruto disappeared. As Naruto's running from the villagers, he's gotten away from getting beaten, but barely. As then he's running by the Uchiha compound. As then Mikoto sees Naruto running and sees all the cuts and bruises that he has. As then she quickly just pulls Naruto in. And during this time, Fugaku was in the area, or coming home from his time at the police force. As then he sees Mikoto pull Naruto into the compound, and he says, ah, I see. Because in this, Fugaku, well, he never hated Naruto. He actually feels bad for him, for what's happening. But anyway, as then he goes in front of his gates of the Uchiha compound, as the villagers come up and say, have you seen the Ninetales brat, or the demon brat? As Fugaku says, what do you mean, the demon brat? As they say, you know what I mean. Is he in your compound? Are you protecting him? As then as Fugaku goes, I don't let anybody else in my compound besides one person, or two people, Lady Kushina and her daughter. No one else is allowed. So no, the demon brat is not in the demon brat is not here. This can be, you see, if you trespass on this, then you will die. trespass on my home or my compound. I have permission to kill, so I suggest you leave now. As he flares his Sharingan. As then villagers get scared as they say, fine. But good, so then the kid Brad's somewhere out here, so as they leave. As then we cut to Makoto helping Naruto bandage up and saying, are you okay? As Naruto says, thank you, but I don't know why they keep doing this. They keep calling me a demon. Didn't do anything to them. As Makoto says, it's okay. You're safe here, so don't worry. As Naruto says, thank you. As Naruto says, if anything happened to you, I would try my best to help. Or even if I had the power to bring people back to life, if I had the power, then I would if you died. As she chuckles and says, thanks little Naruto. Thanks Naruto. But nobody has that type of power. So, don't worry about it. If something happens to me, just know. Me, Fugaku, always cared about you, so you don't have to worry. As Naruto smiles and says, thank you. As then we go back to present time. As Makoto says, well, you know, like I said, I'm doing good, and Fugaku's doing good as well. I actually had a son not that long ago, a few years ago. Actually, it's about the same time as Narumi is born, as he said, or a little bit before. As Naruto says, oh, really? Nice. Is he doing well? Of course. As Naruto asks, is Itachi doing good as well? As Makoto says yes. As Makoto says, hey, Naruto. As then somebody knocks on the door as Naruto quickly puts on his mask. And Izumi Uchiha, Itachi's girlfriend, opens the door without permission, and instantly Kunai, and so on, flew towards her and almost hit her head. As then she sees Naruto, she's, what? As then, or sees the masked man, and she says, who are you? As then Naruto quickly disappears and karate chops Izumi's neck, knocking her out. As then he says, who is this? As Makoto says, this is Izumi Uchiha, Itachi's girlfriend, you could say. Well, she's basically like family, so don't hurt her. Naruto says, fine, but I'm sorry if I was scaring her. She came in unannounced, so Makoto says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. But you should go have some fun with your little sis since you haven't seen her in a while. As Naruto says, are you sure? When's my mom and dad coming back? Or when's my mom coming back? And when is Minato coming back? As he says that with a distaste in his mouth. As then she says, well, they're actually at a 5 Kage summit. As Naruto says, oh? Very interesting. And she says, yeah, they won't be back for quite a while. They won't be back for the next few days. The next 3 or 4 days, to be exactly. Naruto says, oh, so interesting. As then Makoto says, why don't you go take Narumi for ramen? Naruto says, okay. And she says, are you sure you don't want me to try to help with, as he points at Izumi. As then she says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. As Naruto says, well, normally I don't like people knowing, but if you trust her, you could tell her. But if you don't trust her, then try to find out a way to hide from me being here. And she says, of course. As Naruto picks up baby Narumi, or young Narumi, 2 years old, to go to the ramen stand. As then Naruto walks in as he's holding Narumi, as he has his mask on. And she says, hey, can I get 2 bowls of ramen? As then, or miso pork ramen. As Kyoichi, the ramen guy, and her says, of course. As then his daughter, Ayame, is standing by him, as she's about the same age as Naruto, which is 6 years old. As Naruto puts his face mask down after the ramen was done, as he's eating, as Ayame is thinking in her head, he's kind of cute. I wonder who he is. As then Toyoichi looks back and sees Naruto without his face mask, or without his mask on. He says, "Naruto?" As then Ayame says, "That's Naruto?" He's changed. He's kind of, as she kind of blurts out loud, he's kind of hot. As then Naruto says, "What? What'd you say?" And she says, "Oh, nothing." As Toyoichi kind of caught this. As Naruto's continuing eating ramen, he's like, "Well, I'm going to be taking this to go, so I'm going to be going somewhere to have a little bit of fun." As Naruto gives a smirk, as then Toyoichi says, "Oh, okay, but what are you doing with Narumi?" As he says, "Oh, we're having brother and sister bonding time, you could say." As he smiles and says, "Okay, Naruto, well, have a good time, or have fun." As Naruto says, "Of course." And he pays for the ramen, as he says, "See ya, old man." As then he swirls away in flames, as Toyoichi's just shocked. And so is Ayame, to see Naruto back. Oh, so they think. As Naruto left a note saying, "Please don't tell anybody, especially you know who." As Toyoichi says, or thinks and said, "Of course." As then Naruto appears into the Kage Summit, at the Kage Summit, holding baby Narumi, of course. And you see down, there's this big table, and there's one table for guests, you could say. Or not table, but seat, that nobody sits at, really, except for very few people, or important people. As Naruto's just sitting there, eating ramen, and giving some to baby Narumi. Now this lasted for almost 15 minutes. As he's just listening to basically Minato and all the other Kage just talking. As Kushina is Minato's bodyguard at this moment. As then they hear a baby laughter, or giggling, as Narumi's just giggling due to the silence, and Naruto just, or with basically Kurama and them inside of Naruto's shirt. As then they look over and see a masked figure with baby Narumi in his hands. As they're like, "Who are you?" As Kushina says, "Wait, that's my daughter. What did you do to Makoto?" As Naruto says, "I didn't do anything." "Well, you could say she's knocked out at the moment. I'm having a little fun here." As then Kushina gives him a fighting stance and says, I'll kill you. Why do you have my daughter? If you do anything to her, you'll regret it." As Naruto says, "Oh, don't worry, she's fine. I'll return her back to her babysitter. I'm just having a little bit of fun." As he's actually using the Madara voice, or the Toby voice, because at this moment he likes to do voice impressions, and he's doing the Toby voice at this moment, doing very high pitched, basically saying, "Oh, I'm just having some fun, you know. Plus, I wanted to see how these 5 Kage Summits are. They sounded fun, but now they're really boring." As he sounds disappointed. As then they said, "You didn't answer who I am." As Naruto says, "Oh, well," as he points at Danzo, because Danzo was there to be a counselor, you could say, or with Minato. As he says, "Well, he knows me, but it's not important at the moment." As then Danzo's thinking, "Really, kid? You're causing too much trouble." As then Naruto just smirks and says, "Well, I just basically was seeing how this thing was going to be going and what you guys were talking about." As Naruto says, "Is it about the 9 tails disappearing?" As we cut to a few days, as they call it a Kage Summit, to discuss the Ninetales disappearing and not reappearing for quite a long time, because around this time it should have already been resurfaced. And they say, how do you know that? As then Naruto says, oh, I know many things. As then he sees Yagura, the Mizukage, the fourth Mizukage, as he says, oh, how are you doing? As then Yagura says, what? I don't know. He says, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Isabu, the Three Tails. How are you doing? As then in Yagura's head is, he says, how does he know I'm here and I'm doing fine? As Yagura says, he's fine, but how do you know him? As Naruto says, oh, I know all the tailed beasts. I know the one tail's Shikaku from the sand, two tails Matsutabi, three tails Isabu, four tails Son Goku, and so on. And we get to the Nine Tails. Do you guys know the names? As they say, as he looks at Kushina. Well, you should. You're the previous Jinchuriki. That's the first thing you should do, is introduce yourself. After all, it's the most polite thing to do. As then they say, well, you're not introducing yourself. And he's like, well, I'm like a shadow. Or something that doesn't exist, or should be gone, but is there, always watching. But anyway, the Nine Tails, Kurama. As then he says to Kushina, I'm very disappointed that you didn't ask her name. After all, she's very kind. As then we see the Nine Tails pop out her head, as it looks almost like a kitten. And they say, how's the Nine Tails out? Where's Naruto? As then Kushina says, where's Naruto? Did you kill him? There's no other way the Nine Tails could be out. As then he says, oh, I didn't kill him. Your son's fine. He's in a place that is protected, you could say, from a person. As then then all of a sudden Kushina hears another voice saying, after all, we're protecting him from this man. Or, a certain man. As then she sees a black cat pop out the head of Naruto's coat and she says, that voice. I know that voice, as she gets a flashback to when Naruto was taken. And she says, well, it's you. You're the one who took him, but you're in a different form. As in, Yoriichi says, well, I took him to a place that he's protected, that he wouldn't be harmed. So he's fine. But you won't know that for a while, I guess. But that gives you some reassurance, Kushina. As then Naruto says, well, I must be going now. It was fun. But this little one seems to need to be going back to her babysitter. As he says, I'm giving you this one warning. Don't trust that man, as he points at Minato. He's untrustworthy. So, I hope you guys all have a great day. As then he goes into the moderate voice and says, like I said, there will always be light and there will always be dark. Nothing ever goes as planned in this world. As then he flares his Mangekyo. As they're like, is that Madara? No, he's a kid. How does he have the Mangekyo? As they're just confused. As then Naruto is just swirling away in flames. As Minato saw this and thought it was the masked man that attacked many years ago. And then he says, well, see you later, in the tilted voice. Naruto says, well, that's where I'm going to leave it off. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed, and see you guys, have a good day or night, depending on time zones. See ya!